Nintendo's in huge trouble with the gaming community right now. We got people coping on one side, people seething on the other side. Everybody's coping and seething. Video games are overpriced now. No, video games haven't met inflation. They're actually really cheap now. These games are $70, $80, plus microtransactions and battle passes and exclusive pre-order content. And $30 extra to play it early with some new skins and stuff. And you get to play the first season of the Battle Pass for free. You know what? I believe that games have always been overpriced, forever, since the beginning. I rarely buy full price games. There's like 5 instances in my entire life where I've bought games for full price. Starting with the very first one I remember ever buying myself, and that was God of War 2. I bought that with money that I made from a yard sale for like $50. I went to the midnight release for Halo Reach, for Black Ops 1. Got those games. I bought Baldur's Gate 3 within like the first few days of its release. Resident Evil 4, I got the remake. I got day one. I was not disappointed. Some games are worth it, man. Most games are not. And honestly, I don't really care if Nintendo games are gonna cost $80, $100. I don't care if they're $200. I'm still not gonna buy them. Why would I pay that kind of money? I'd pay $20 for a Nintendo game. Breath of the Wild probably worth $100. But since it's from Nintendo, I'm only gonna pay $20. Anyway, let's get on with their latest backlash from Yong Yeah. Nintendo's responses to $80 Switch 2 games backlash goes very poorly. Apparently they responded to the backlash.
Okay, so Nintendo has finally provided a response to all of the backlash surrounding the Switch 2, in particular the $80 price tag for certain games. And the backlash is pretty extensive. It's not just the price point, the MSRP that's gone up, that's getting backlash, but also accessories going up in price and the upgrade packs associated with Switch 2 edition games that will require some form of payment, that are paywalled in some way, shape, or form. The fact that, the GameCube controller is paywalled behind Switch Online and pre-orders. There's also physical media, kind of the way that's being handled in some regards with the game key cards format not being something people are a fan of because it's physical media that requires an online download, which defeats the whole purpose of that particular physical media.
No, actually, Nintendo knows exactly what they're doing here. They want to prevent pirating. They realize that Nintendo fans like the physical case to keep on their shelves, but they don't want to give you the physical game still because pirating. And they also want to charge you extra for the physical game itself because they had to manufacture the case and all of that and the artwork. So here you go, eat up.
Tariffs might force prices to go up. And then recently we learned Joy-Cons are not going to feature Hall effect joysticks, which would have mitigated the Joy-Con drift issue that's been prevalent for Switch 1. Most recently, we learned that Nintendo Switch 2 will not implement achievements, or at least, not yet. Zelda will have in-app achievements.
I understand some people care about achievements. I really don't. Sitting here as a Steam player, they really don't mean anything other than like, oh, I did this thing. Remember when I did this thing? Look, I beat this game completely 100% like 10 years ago. I mean, I get the appeal, but it doesn't really matter. It doesn't affect the gameplay really that much.
But in terms of the overall system, Nintendo's just kind of not implementing that element, which achievements being something that a lot of people care about and find to be a great motivator to play and come back to games. Just some people found that a little disappointing. Oh, and another bit of news that cropped up today is that Canada has also recently delayed Switch 2 pre-orders because of tariffs, so on and so forth. Pre-orders have gone live in countries like UK and Australia and you name it, but in sort of the Americas, it seems like things are a little precarious right now on that front. But the focus today will be on the $80 MSRP for Mario Kart World. Now, here's something that I just for some reason missed in my previous videos that I learned very recently. It's not just Mario Kart World that will have an $80 MSRP. It's also Switch 2 editions of games that will be at that price point. And the most egregious example of this is The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Look at this. That is $80.
If they're wanting to fight piracy, this is not the way to do it. If we can get these games available for free, we can just get the regular Switch versions and then upgrade them ourselves. I would never do that. No, not me.
That's an old game, and it is getting a resolutions upgrade and faster loading times, and yeah, some like app integration that's kind of neat. But many would argue that more consumer-friendly developers would provide those updates for free. We've seen far greater upgrades for free than what Zelda Tears of the Kingdom is giving us here. The fact that they kind of had the audacity to increase an old game's price point by an additional $10. Like at the very least, Mario Kart World is a brand new game for a brand new generation of consoles. But Tears of the Kingdom, it's the same game.
I get this. I get where he's like, oh, it's $10 for an old and $10 extra for a new version of an old game, which I don't really like, but I get it. I get that they are adding upgrades to it, which would be fine if they dropped the price for these damn games. If Breath of the Wild was like $40 and they upped the price to $50, I could understand that. But Breath of the Wild is $70. Still, it's been out for over half a decade and it's still full price. It's still full price. It's ridiculous.
There's no like true additional content added to it, and they decided to price this at $80. It is actually freaking insane. And then for certain games that were once upon a time $60, like Kirby and the Forgotten Land and Mario Party Jamboree, those have gone up in price by $20. These are also $80. Utter insanity that old games are being treated as brand new releases that also implement the higher MSRP, the new base standard that they're trying to set here. And that goes to highlight that rumors that upgrade packs will be anywhere from $10 to $20 were absolutely true. $10 for stuff that is mainly just, like a graphics and performance upgrade, and $20 for games like Kirby and Mario Party that do add new content. And
I've been priced out of new AAA games since before the big sick, when rentals finally completely died. When I wasn't able to rent games, that's when I was completely out of the AAA market, out of the new popular releases. I just go for indie games and old games now, and I can't even do that with Nintendo games, because you either can't get them, the ports suck, it's on a weird console that I'm not gonna buy just for a couple of games that I want to play, they're overpriced for the new versions of them, which I might not be able to have later whenever they release a new console. And they're available for free on PC usually, so, here recently I haven't even paid more than $5 for new games. I bought Dead Island Definitive Edition for like $3. And I already had Dead Island, the original edition. And there's not much different, but $3 is $3. That's really cheap for some upgraded graphics.
The response that Nintendo has provided trying to justify that price point has not made things any better. If anything, it's only made the backlash worse. People are not buying what Nintendo is relaying. The justification is just incredibly weak. So right here we have an article by the Washington Post whose headline reads, Nintendo boss Doug Bowser explains the $80 price for Mario Kart World.
That explains it right there. Bowser has taken control of Nintendo America, and he's destroying Nintendo. It makes so much sense.
Oh, how fitting it is that the name of Nintendo of America's president is Bowser in this situation. So yeah, the Washington Post spoke with Bowser and inquired about the $80 price tag for games like Mario Kart World. And Bowser first started by pointing out that certain titles like Donkey Kong Bonanza are going to be $70, but that doesn't change the fact that people who will be buying Mario Kart World or certain Switch 2 Edition games will still be shelling out $80. So the way Bowser kind of framed all of this is that what you see right there is variable pricing.
People keep pointing out, oh, Mario Kart World is actually not $80, it's $50 because you get it with the Switch bundle. But what if I don't have $500 to spend right away? I don't even got $450. I don't even got $400. I might have $350 for a Switch 2. I'll get it used. But then Mario Kart World is still going to be $80 for the digital version. And you know what? I'm not buying it if I get a Switch 2. That is how I'm gonna get a Switch 2, and it will not come with Mario Kart World if I get it used, because it's just a digital game code. At this point, I don't see the point of getting a Switch 2, because I'm not gonna be buying all these expensive $70 plus games. I'm not spending more than $20 for games, and most Nintendo games are over $20. And I don't care if they're worth it or not. I don't have more than $20 spent on video games. I've got way more important things to be spending money on. Not everybody is rich and is able to buy every single game for every single console.
We'll look at each game, really look at the development that's gone into the game, the breadth and depth of the gameplay, if you will, the durability over time, and the replayability of gameplay experiences. Those are all factors, and there's many more that go into consideration of what is the right price point for the game. So I think you can anticipate that there will be variable pricing, and we haven't set a benchmark.
Those are all factors, and there's many more that go into consideration of what is the right price point for the game. Well, they didn't consider that there aren't any games that are $80, $90. Other than these that they just announced, they were the first ones.
Except when you look at the kinds of games that are out right now or that will be releasing that you could argue are bigger in budget, bigger in scale than Mario Kart World and are still priced at $70 or less, there is no excuse for Mario Kart World to be priced at $80. Nintendo's acting as if Mario Kart World is reaching ambitions at the level of GTA 6 or something along those lines. And not to mention that at $70, Mario Kart World will make its money back and then some, but it's not about making enough money for Nintendo. It's just about making all the money they can. And while Mario Kart World doesn't feature microtransactions and all of these elements, the MSRP going up during the current economic state when wages have not kept up with the inflation, and when $80 for Mario Kart World and that's succeeding sets a precedent for other companies to follow suit, setting the price point at $80 for their major releases, and this essentially increasing the floor of prices for gaming as a whole. Like, that's what Nintendo has done here. They've kickstarted something here that will screw over a lot of consumers and kind of extract more money from them in what is already a pretty expensive hobby.
He's wrong about that. It's only going to extract money from people that are willing to pay this much for games. People who don't want to pay this much, who are barely hanging on to AAA new releases, they're out. And people are going to be more cautious when it comes to 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10 games that are going to cost $80, $100. And also still be full of microtransactions and all of that. And with the current economic crises that are going on right now in the world, like the economy has crashed, essentially. The tariffs are nowhere near over. Markets for various things around the world are doing terribly. Everything pretty much is in the red. But you know what? Let's go ahead and raise the prices of everything. Go ahead and raise the ceiling. We charge more games, we make more money, right? That's not how that works. Nintendo wasn't there for E.T. I wasn't either, but I know enough information about it. They weren't there for E.T. They helped save the gaming community from the gaming crash of the 70s and early 80s, and now they're kickstarting it to happen again. Nintendo is the new Atari.
On this topic, the Washington Post, or specifically Gene Park, the editor of this article, asked Bowser if Nintendo breaking the seal on higher game prices is part of its role as an industry leader, if this is a trend that they want to kickstart because they're in a position to be able to do so. And what Bowser said was, I think it's less about representing the industry. This is really about Nintendo deciding the right thing to do for its products or what the pricing should be for its products overall. Even in the previous generation, we had some variability, referring to the fact that Tears of the Kingdom was $70, whereas a lot of other games were $60, except by the time Tears of the Kingdom came out, $70 had already kind of been standardized, but in this case, it's Nintendo who's trying to standardize yet another price increase for the baseline MSRP of major releases from $70 to $80. He further continued, I think for us, that's really how we want to proceed and go forward. I can't speak for other games that might be released by other publishers or platforms. It's more about what we think is right for our content, what is the right value for the consumers as they come into our platform. They're kind of trying to skirt responsibility for what actions other companies might take. They're kind of basically saying this whole $80 to $70 variability, we're just doing our thing, but people watch what you do, Nintendo, because you are an industry leader. And the second you price games at $8, everyone else will follow through, especially on a game like Mario Kart that will succeed, that will kind of essentially prove to the games industry that they can get away with pricing games at $80, that people will still buy them and they can make boatloads of money from that price point. It is going to set a baseline, whether you intend to or not. And so by doing so, you're not just kind of confined to this Nintendo bubble. You are changing the industry as a whole in a way that is worse for consumers in the long run, especially during the current economic state. You can see right here, just from reactions to this quote, that people are not happy about this. Somebody joking here, we will implement variable purchasing if you want to implement variable pricing. Perfect.
People think that I am hating on Nintendo because of the pricing of these games. No, I hate on Nintendo for a lot of things. Specific one, shutting down Let's Play channels, not letting people play their games, people being worried to play Nintendo games because they don't want copyright claims, copyright strikes. There's one. The loads and loads of shovelware that they just spoon feed people. Their consoles have always been loaded with shovelware. Just the most garbage, cheap slop to trick parents and grandparents into buying these garbage games for their kids and grandkids. Always been a thing. Gimmicky features that they charge a premium for. I can get on board with gimmicky features because sometimes gimmicks end up turning into new technologies and new standards that are great. Just look at the N64 controller. I'd argue that the GameCube controller was the first iteration of the Xbox 360 controller. But charging a premium for it, for their experiments, and saying like, this is a groundbreaking feature, this is a new thing, never been done before, check out our chat feature. Nobody's ever done this before, except for everybody in like 2005.
That means Mario Tennis, Mario Golf, Mario Soccer, and ARMS should all be $40 or less. Variable goes in both directions, and if this means some games will be less than $60, then it's an extremely good thing, but I'm skeptical. See, that's the hypocritical aspect to this whole variable pricing. The ceiling is variable, but the floor is not. The floor stays at least $60 to $70, but Nintendo will not price something at below $60, $50, $40, $30 if the scale is kind of at that level. And so this is just kind of a bullshit excuse, this whole variable pricing thing. I mean, it's simple. They just want more money. They do want to raise the floor and slowly start to ingratiate this trend of games becoming $80. And they kind of want to future-proof themselves. And this is all just essentially a corporate, business-driven move that takes no consideration for consumers and kind of the state that they're living in because of the current world state.
What are you talking about, Young? Yeah, they got plenty of games that are cheap. Just look at Stardew Valley and Minecraft and all of these indie titles that everybody was playing like 10 years ago plus. That's going to be their argument. They're going to point out all these indie titles or older games or smaller games, and they're going to be like, well, look at these games. These games aren't $60. What about Witchbrook? Witchbrook's not going to be full price.
It's not just Bowser who spoke up. Right here we have an article from news outlet IGN. They managed to speak to Bill Trinan, who is America's Vice President of Product and Player Experience. This is a quote that he put out there in regards to Mario Kart World's price tag, him trying to justify all this by saying, I would say it's less about the strategy of pricing Mario Kart World. It's more just whenever we look at a given game, we just look at what is the experience and what's the content and what's the value. Mario Kart World, I think, especially as you see from the Nintendo Direct, not to give you any hints or anything, but I did read your article this morning, and I think you had mentioned that you didn't find a lot to discover when roaming around. So I would say tune into our Mario Kart Direct to see what maybe you'll be able to find out about that.
I love how they say Mario Kart World. Hold on. Let me back up. I would say it's less about the strategy of pricing Mario Kart World. It's more just whenever we look at a given game, we just look at what is the experience and what's the content and what's the value. They're trying to determine how good their game is before reviewers get the games, before consumers get a hold of the games, and nowadays reviewers are just way worse than they used to be. People are telling me that games are 10 out of 10 when they're 7 out of 10. People are telling me a game is 2 out of 10 when it's a 7 out of 10. And if it was up to the publishers and the developers to determine what the experience and the content and the value is, every game's gonna be $120 because everybody thinks that their game's 10 out of 10.
But honestly, this is a game that is so big and so vast, and you will find so many little things in it to discover, and there's still some other secrets remaining that I think as people end up buying and playing the game, they're going to find this to be probably the richest Mario Kart experience they've ever had.
You're not really paying $80 for Mario Kart. You're paying $80 for a racing game that is similar to Forza Horizon with Mario Kart characters in it. That's what you're paying for. You're paying for the characters and the vibe. You're not actually paying for the gameplay in the world. You're paying for a Nintendo game. That's why it's priced like that. Because it is a Nintendo game. Nobody else's game, just Nintendo's.
But that doesn't justify a price increase because we've had plenty of games that offer incredibly rich, dense, and vast experiences that still have the kind of consumer-friendly perspective in mind of like, let's just maintain the price point. Again, they're acting as if Mario Kart is doing something unprecedented when there are plenty of games out there that are vast and rich and dense and still maintain, $70 or less price point. Like, don't get me wrong, Mario Kart World does look like a far more ambitious Mario Kart, but it doesn't look to be the most ambitious open world game ever that has people thinking, oh, this is definitely worth $80 and it's definitely worth raising the entire floor of the base MSRP for AAA releases.
And what if it comes out and everybody gets Mario Kart World and they decide, hey, this game isn't good. Everybody buys it for $80 though. And Nintendo are like, oh, well, everybody's buying it. It must be good, right? Let's start pricing every game at $80. But everybody says it's bad after they bought it, but it's a collector's item now, so they can't really get rid of it. They're gonna stop buying your games, Nintendo. If all of them are gonna be bad, they're gonna only buy the ones that are like top level, that are Nintendo exclusives like Donkey Kong, Legend of Zelda. You'll just have to make more of those games, and people are gonna buy less of the smaller titles. That's what's gonna happen.
Bill Trinan was also asked about the fact that certain Nintendo Switch 2 edition games will cost $80. Again, these are old games that they've decided to increase the price point of. Tears of the Kingdom being the most egregious example. This is a game whose enhancements honestly should all be free. The fact that this is an $80 package is just ridiculous. This game is not that old. The enhancements aren't so great as to justify the base $80 MSRP. This is like the audacity of this is actually, it genuinely pisses me off. So here's what Trinan had to say about that side of things, pricing Switch 2 edition games, which are old games, at $80. He said, well, again, what I would say is that we just look at each individual game and we look at the content, the value of that game, and then we say, what is the right price for the value of this entertainment?
So he just repeated the same thing. He said the same thing, but in a different order.
What I'd probably counter to some of that is that really what you're looking at is for the Nintendo Switch 2 edition, that's the physical price for somebody that has not bought the base game. For somebody who's bought Tears of the Kingdom or Breath of the Wild, the upgrade packs, those are $9.99, which puts it at the same price point as those who have never purchased the game. $60 for Breath of the Wild plus $10 is $70, and then Tears of the Kingdom, $70 plus $10 is $80. So, regardless, it makes no difference. Bill Trinan does argue that if you happen to be a Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack member, both of the Zelda upgrade packs are inclusive within that membership, so there's no additional charge for those, except it is an additional charge because you are relegated to a subscription to have access to those Switch 2 edition updates.
You get the updates automatically for free, if you remember? Or when you stop paying, do they take away those upgrades, even if you're in the middle of playing? I don't get that one. What does that do?
Imagine that if you unsubscribe or one day you decide that you don't want to pay monthly for this, then you will lose access to those things. So there are conditions attached to that he doesn't seem to mention. And he says finally, but I think overall our general approach is really just focus on what's the content, what's the value, and what's an appropriate price based on that. Well, you've already determined that Tears of the Kingdom is a $70 game and you're not adding any new content on top of that. So you increasing the price point to $80 it's just you kind of overplaying your hand, because you've already set the price at $70. That's what it should be worth at most on the Nintendo Switch 2, even with the upgrades. Again, if it had new content, it'd be one thing, but performance and graphics upgrades, those things should be free. And yes, there's the whole app integration and whatnot, but as I've mentioned before, there are developers who've given far more content for free than what Tears of the Kingdom is doing here. The fact that they're charging $10, it is a freaking insult. Here's another response from Nintendo, specifically Bill Trinen, that Mashable got when they interviewed Bill Trinen. So when asked about the $80 price point for Mario Kart World, he said this: Mario Kart is a tremendous, tremendous amount of content. The way the world is so interconnected, I can literally drive across the continent. I'm sometimes racing through 6 different tracks on something like Knockout Tour and racing in between them, and it's all seamless and interconnected. Again, they're acting like this is the first game of its kind, open world racing, which has been done. Forza Horizon did it. So it's not like they're revolutionizing gaming here. They are taking the Mario Kart formula and expanding it.
What about Midnight Club? Midnight Club did that before even Forza Horizon. And I'm sure there are other open world racing games besides that. I just don't really play racing games that much, other than older racing games.
Which is awesome. But again, they're games that are as ambitious, if not more, than Mario Kart World, that are priced at $70. Mario Kart World just hasn't earned that $80 price point in terms of what it's trying to do. It is no GTA 6. And even GTA 6, you know, kind of the prospect of that being $80 is something that people are not happy about. So Mario Kart World doing it is, you know, understandably drawing a lot of backlash given the standardization that it's setting for gaming as a whole, in making things more expensive for everyone industry-wide. And then one more response I want to talk about from Nintendo is their justification for why the Welcome Tour game for Nintendo Switch 2 costs any kind of money whatsoever instead of it being included in the package. So we now know for sure that Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour costs $10, which just about universally it is agreed upon that this should have been packed into the game in the same way that Wii Sports was, in the same way that Astra Playroom was for PlayStation 5, especially when Astra Playroom and Wii Sports look to be far more kind of, I don't know, extensive or more fun games than the Welcome Tour. It costing any kind of money at all is something that people are utterly baffled by. And the justification that Bill Trinen provided when IGN asked about that was, it's an interesting product. I think people will be able to see through Treehouse Live probably a little bit more maybe than you were able to see on the show floor. It's a pretty robust piece of software. There's a lot of great detail in there.
So if we're going by Nintendo judging what the prices of their games should be, and they're pricing this one at $10, and it's just a tech demo, they didn't do right. They did everything wrong. This is a fail. This is a fail so hard, and it's probably going to fail upwards for a little while, and then it's going to crash all around them.
For some people, I think there are people who are particularly interested in the tech and the specs of the system and things like that. For them, I think it's going to be a great product. It's really for people that want more information about the system rather than necessarily a quick intro to everything it does. And for that reason, and just the amount of care and work that the team put into it, I think it was decided that, yeah, this feels like $10 is not an exorbitant price. It feels like a good value for what you're getting out of the product.
I keep hearing people say, well, like, people put care and work and time, and if you don't buy it, people are going to lose their jobs. I don't care. I don't care if they were making a 10 out of 10 game and it ended up being a 2 out of 10, but they poured their heart and soul into it. I don't care. A good game is a good game, a bad game is a bad game. It is what it is. Look, I made you this shit sandwich. I spent 12 hours on it. I spent $100 to put truffle oil mayonnaise on it. Please enjoy my shit sandwich that I worked really hard on. Buy it so I may feed my family and not go hungry and be poor.
$10 is not exorbitant, but it's about the principle of the thing and the fact that better standards have been set by other console launches like the Wii and PlayStation 5. And Bill Trinen makes the justification here that a lot of care and work was put into this game by the team to justify the $10 price point, but that's also not unique to the Welcome Tour. A lot of care and work was put into Wii Sports, as it was put into Astra's Playroom, and yet those experiences were free. We look at something like Astra's Playroom, it felt like a full-fledged game. It was free, so it is a shorter game, but 4 to 5 hours for a free game that kind of does a lot to showcase the PlayStation 5's hardware capabilities and that it's fun within its own right. I don't think that Switch 2's Welcome Tour will live up to Astra's Playroom, and it costs money, whereas this is completely free. Not to mention that for $10, I mean, the fact that it's $10, if it was like $2 or something, 5 at most, but even 5 is just a little too much, honestly. Again, it should be free, but at $10, I mean, when you think about what you can get for $10, Undertale is $10. You've got freaking Vampire Survivors is $5, and currently it's discounted to $4. You've got freaking Balatro, which for $5 more, you get this endlessly replayable game. There is no justification for the Welcome Tour being $10.
I bought Dead Island for $3. I bought Jedi Fallen Order for $5. I got those 2 games for less than what this game costs. And this is why I play older games.
That, like, I've seen gameplay of it, and a lot of the tech demo there is kind of neat, but neat tech demo should be kind of something integrated in the console at this stage, especially when you're releasing a new console, and especially when other console releases have kind of set the bar on that front. This right here just feels like such a regression to what other consoles have done that it's just hard to wrap your head around it. And whenever you give companies an inch in terms of them trying to kind of backpedal on consumer friendliness, I think they need to be called out so that we don't give them that leeway and room, because you give them an inch, they take a mile, they take everything. And going online, you can see that plenty of people are not happy about the situation, with plenty of folks highlighting how Welcome Tour is $10, but Astro's Playroom is completely free. Gene Park, who played Welcome Tour 4 times, straight up said this is like really neat and would have been a perfect pack-in. The Switch 2 Welcome Tour being a paid game is so out of pocket. I'm still not over that. A lot of people aren't, because it feels like the standards are kind of being lowered, which is just egregious. And looking at responses, people are mocking this whole situation, just utterly in disbelief that the audacity to do this would even exist. And so, yeah, look, again, it all comes back to, I love the Nintendo Switch 2's hardware. I love the games that are coming out for it. I think the Nintendo Direct did a really good job of like showcasing that Nintendo really kind of put a lot of love and care into refining the Switch 1 when making the Switch 2, and I'm sure the games coming out for it will be incredibly fun, and it is going to be a successful console. But because we care about Nintendo and its games and its platforms and its hardware, it's all the more reason to call this stuff out so that we don't let them push the boundaries too far, because not only is that bad for, you know, those who want to partake in the Switch 2 ecosystem, it sets standards for gaming as a whole that might lead to regressions kind of industry-wide, because Nintendo is an industry leader, and what they do does have a ripple effect, and that's something that no matter what Bowser says, Nintendo can't get away from. And so their justifications, their responses, trying to justify everything they're doing here just falls completely flat. Or at the very least, that's one man's take. Let me know in the comments below what your thoughts and opinions are on the responses provided by Nintendo and the price points we're seeing for the Welcome Tour, the fact that Mario Kart World is $8, and frickin' Nintendo Switch 2 edition games, older games, are getting a price bump, especially like something like Tears of the Kingdom, which does not add new content. It being $8 base price is just freaking wild.
Yeah, if I get the Switch 2, it's going to be the used version of the Switch 2, and I'm not going to be buying any new games full price. I probably won't be buying any Nintendo branded games. I'll probably be mostly using it as an indie game machine, or like to play games that aren't on Steam, that are only on Switch. If they're on Steam, I'm just going to get them on Steam. That's just what's going to happen. I don't see where does Nintendo go from here, you know? I don't see them doing a Switch 3. What is the Switch 3 gonna be like? We've only got like 7 to 10 more years until we get a new console from Nintendo. Like 2030 comes around, we're gonna be talking about the next Nintendo. We're gonna be talking about what the next consoles are gonna be like, if there are even gonna be any consoles. And they can't do this one again. I think we got about maybe 10 years left of Nintendo before they just become like a third-party company for Microsoft or something. They'll be like, oh, well, here's the Xbox Switch. It's just the handheld version of the Xbox. Here you go. $250. It's mostly streaming. I don't know, man. The whole conversation about all this stuff is getting whack. I'll just be over here playing my free versions of games because they're way too overpriced and I'll never be able to buy them. And buying $1 to $10, $15 games here and there. It's all ridiculous. It's been ridiculous for over half a decade. Ever since the Big Sick, it's all just been going down the shitter. See you in the next one.